Bungie said in a recent interview, "We don't want Destiny 2 to be a dead game." Well, that's too damn bad. I'm kidding, of course. But this is an interesting interview because we finally have Tyson Green, who is the game director, coming out of hiding. I don't know where he's been, in Osama's cave or something. Guy must be a hunter, man. He hasn't said anything for months as the game director, but finally he's saying something, and we have this big article from IGN. So, of course, we have to read this. And no, that's not me passing gas from Turkey from Thanksgiving. That is a very loud car right outside where I'm at right now. I'm traveling right now, so you can excuse the road sounds that might come through the mic. Here we go. The lead devs of the new Renegades expansion reflect on a challenging year and why they're confident in the path forward. It has been a challenging year, and this is what we've been talking about. And every time we talk about it, there's been a few naysayers that say, "Oh, no, 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 this population is not indicative of Destiny 2's health." I'm like, "Oh, really?" Now, even Bungie themselves is saying it's been a very rough year, okay? Since the final shape landed, it did really well 2 months in. It fell off a cliff, aged like milk, and uh, it's been pretty bad ever since. It may be one of the most influential and widely played games online, but Destiny 2 has been experiencing a rough patch as of late, and developer Bungie knows it. Quote, "For years now, Destiny has been on this steady hardening of the core audience," explains game director Tyson Green. "More and more core players are staying and playing the game, but relatively few new people come into the game." So this is what we've been talking about with new player acquisition. Destiny 2 has this like hardcore audience of people that have been playing since like the alpha. They have hundreds or thousands of hours in the game, and no matter what, they consistently keep coming back. But the issue recently, as you can see from the graph here, is that everyone keeps coming back. Forsaken, they all came back. Shadowkeep, they all came back. Beyond Light, Witch Queen, Lightfall, Final Shape, they always come back, but with Edge of Fate was the first time they didn't come back, you know? And so Bungie tried to do this new strategy where they're gonna give the instead of one big annual expansion, they're gonna do a 2 month or two times a year, 6 month mini-ish big expansion, and it just hasn't landed well at all. And it's pretty scary to think about because if you think about the trends of what people are used to right now, if they had kind of stuck with this pattern, this is kind of a winning formula. So like annual expansion and then updates, 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 12 months later, annual expansion. But now since they tried something new and they're like, hey, let's just do a update every 6 months instead, and the outcome wasn't what they wanted, I can guarantee you there's definitely talks about going back to this now. They're probably thinking like, hey, let's not do this. They shot themselves in the foot with this one. There's a tightening and contraction, and this presents problems for a game that you're trying to maintain as a live service, especially when you want to keep serving those core players with great, compelling expansions. So, this is what we've talked about previously, where Bungie said that part of the problem is you, the audience. Everyone got old, so the Destiny players aged out. So, eventually, you get older, and maybe you don't play the game as much, things like that. But it's really not the players, the core players aging out as much as it is a problem of acquisition of new players, I would say. Most of these games are grabbing and building new players. Arc Raiders is an excellent example of that. Arc Raiders has been blowing up, has like 700,000 players at its peak, and is continuing to do really well a month after launch. So it's definitely possible to acquire new players. It's just Destiny as a game and the management really struggled to pull this off. I'm not sure why it's so difficult to get new players in and get them playing. Maybe you have some thoughts and ideas. I feel like Destiny is it's a game that I play and I like, but I actually don't recommend it to people a lot just because it's such a big time sink game. If there was a way they could work that out where you could play Destiny at like a really casual pace and not feel this like extreme pressure of FOMO, then maybe that would be the best solution. But I don't even know. I don't know how you could do it. I don't know how you could balance both. Following the launch of the Edge of Fate expansion in July, Destiny 2 saw a slump in player activity, not necessarily due to the vision of its new storyline, but rather in how it redesigned the flow of power progression to see the campaign through. Since then, Bungie has been steadily working to make changes to build up its audience again, and the upcoming expansion, Star Wars Renegades, will mark the developer's next effort to lay a better path forward for its evolving universe. Hopefully, Renegades delivers, you know what I'm saying? And people are saying they don't recommend Destiny to their friends because it's too expensive. I mean, is it too expensive? Like, it technically, you could have bought you could download Destiny 2 for free and then bought the Green Man Gaming Bundle, and you'd get $35. You'd get everything. You know what I'm saying? Expensive. It can be expensive at times, but when you think about the ROI for the amount of hours you play for the entertainment, if you compare that to like going to the movie theater, once a weekend, every weekend, I think you would see a pretty stark contrast in pricing. I don't know. I feel like Destiny, it might be a little bit more of an expensive game compared to other games, but it's also supposed to be live service, so it's supposed to have a lot of like constantly added things to the game to make it worth the added expense. You know what I'm saying? Like Destiny is supposed to be worth the added expense. Has it been recently? Probably not. But there's definitely been times where I was like, you know what? Destiny 2, in terms of popularity, I was like, this is the sickest game to play. Beyond Light was so much fun. Witch Queen, dude, I spent a lot of money on Witch Queen. I had a lot of fun. It was definitely worth it during this time. Lightfall was probably the beginning of me being like, no, not that. And then Final Shape at launch, definitely. And then afterwards, the rest is the same. People want free. People want Destiny 2 to be completely free. That would be an incredible accomplishment if Bungie could find the ability to do that. Unfortunately, with the current dev team size that it takes to develop Destiny 2, it's just not going to happen. Maybe in the future, one day, I don't know. I don't know how they have to put some ads in the game. Imagine you launch Destiny 2, and instead of all those pop-ups, you get an ad that says, hey, purchase Manscaped, use discount code Bungie. Hey, purchase some Tide Pods, use our discount code BNG10 to save 10% off. Once you start getting some ads in the game, maybe the game could go full free to play. But at this stage, there's just no way. It's just they have too many devs. They're paying too much money. For many developers working on online games with live service elements, calcifying player numbers has been a recurring obstacle. Often this can be simply a matter of time. Destiny 2 has been running for nearly 10 years now, and it's inevitable that only the most dedicated will stay for the entire ride. But one of Destiny's most recent hurdles is one of its own making. Bungie wrote an end to the story. Yes, very interesting. Since the first Destiny arrived in 2014, each new expansion and update has formed chapters of the Light and Darkness saga, a decade-spanning, lore-dense story. But with the 2024 expansion, The Final Shape, Bungie brought that saga to a finish. And I always thought this was the direction they would take it, where I thought that like the Traveler and the Darkness were like tiny pawns in a bigger game, with like the Winnower and things like that. I thought that that was like the direction we would go. It feels like maybe we're going on like um, a side quest or something that's adjacent to it. And it's an interesting evolution. I feel like it would have been a better play to be like, oh, there's, not that this has to be lore accurate by any means, but the idea is that like, we've been looking at this Traveler as being this like crazy, amazing entity that has given us these powers. But imagine there is a traveler to the Traveler, you know what I'm saying? Like an entity that the Traveler worships or something, or where it gains its power from or something, like basically it's like you're zooming out and you're realizing that you're just a little tiny pawn in a much bigger game. And the further you zoom out, the more insignificant you realize you are because there's even bigger players. And this also works really well with games that have like bosses and raid bosses, because the Witness was like the biggest, baddest boss we ever fought. And the only way you could ever have a more powerful Witness would be is if there was something that like, what I'm saying, that's like way above that, right? Like, and that's what you want. Like at the end of the saga we're on right now, the Fate saga, we want to fight a gigantic enemy that's like more impressive than the Witness. We're not trying to fight some little pitiful guy out there in the middle of nowhere, right? Like that's kind of how the narrative has to end, right? Like it might seem a bit cliche for these video games, like, oh, okay, fight the big raid boss. Yeah, we get it. But it's like the games are almost like meant to be cliche in some ways, because it's much less interesting when you fight some pitiful, weak boss that, doesn't even amount to the bosses of old, It did, of course, set the stage for what's next, another multi-year storyline with a brand new focus. However, much like the current state of the post-Endgame Marvel Cinematic Universe, this presented an issue for Destiny 2, where many longtime and casual players saw it as a natural endpoint to their journey. As you can imagine, this made further adventures a bit of a challenge to present as must-see experiences. So this is an interesting narrative that I think the community and Bungie have kind of created, which is that everyone played the final shape, right? We all logged in and we played, and once we completed that campaign and experienced the raid, the narrative, then everyone was like, all right, that's it, I'm done with Destiny. And that is true. I've seen a lot of people express that on social media, but it should also be said that when you get everyone's attention and you get everyone online, you also have an opportunity to, captivate them and get them to come back and play more. I feel like we delivered a really nice delivery for the final shape, but then afterwards it just fell flat and kept falling flat, and we kind of just let it fizzle out too much to where we've kind of lost a lot of people just playing other games, not really interested. So it doesn't have to be, even if the narrative ends, if you were to start a bigger, more exciting narrative than the Light and Darkness saga, people would be interested. You know what I'm saying? People would be super interested. I feel like the Light and Darkness saga has been so cool, but let's not pretend that there's like nothing will ever eclipse the Light and Darkness saga. Nothing will ever be as interesting as that, right? Like you could easily write a better narrative than the Light and Darkness saga, for sure. Especially considering how disastrous that saga started when they launched Destiny 1. They had the whole stat and cut, right? And then they had to scrap that at the last second. The Black Heart doesn't even make sense. I went back and played the D1 campaign. I'm like, yeah, this doesn't make any sense. Why is the Black Heart just sitting out there in the middle of nowhere? Like, clearly the Black Heart was supposed to be inside the Traveler, right? The Black Heart is in the Traveler, his heart, like the Traveler's heart. And we were supposed to go in and destroy the Black Heart of the, you know what I'm saying? Like, anyways, the whole point is that it would be very much possible to excite people, but what's happened with Edge of Fate and the Fate saga is that it's got off to a lukewarm start at the very best. What's the population today? Today on the Steam charts, we got 14K online right now. It's been a slow Tuesday. Tuesday reset, we hit 16K. Yesterday and Wednesday, we hit 14K. And yeah, we're on Thanksgiving Day, and we're about 14K right now. The final shape brought things to a crescendo, which is like a fantastic ending that tied off a lot of other threads. Says Green, people were pleased and satisfied with what they played, and then the big downward spike in population came afterwards. That happened because we ended the saga, so you get what you pay for, right? So again, that's the perspective they're going with, is that because we ended the narrative, then everyone just leaves the game. And there probably is a certain element to that, especially like maybe a lot of players that quit many years ago wanting to come back and kind of see how the story ends, like people that have experimented, played Destiny 1, maybe played a little bit of Destiny 2. But it's definitely, it shouldn't be treated as a depressing thing. It should be treated as a big opportunity. Like, you're about to captivate the whole world's attention. Now sell them on the new saga. And it really was it could have been a launch pad to another 10-year saga, another 10-year story narrative that people could be even more excited for. But instead they kind of just ended it in a really like climactic way, and then moved on. This wasn't the plan from the business perspective, Green continues. We still want to keep making Destiny. We still have many stories to tell in this universe. There are still lots of things to do, and we have to keep building the game. Unfortunately, it was not gracefully managed, but we had to try something. Interesting. I feel like I take a little bit of frustration at a statement like this, just because I feel like they're trying to blame the entirety of Destiny's struggles on the fact that the final shape happened, rather than taking more accountability for their decisions following the final shape. It turns into this thing of like, oh, well, there's nothing we could have done. We did everything we could have possibly done. Because we did the final shape, then, that cooked us and we could never recover from that. It's like, no, you guys could definitely recover from that. Stop. Like, do not use that as the don't use the final shape as the scapegoat of like, well, we could never come back after that. There are two kinds of loud games: those that listen to the players and respond, and those that don't. And we don't want to be a dead live game. Very interesting. The first steps towards providing a compelling reason to return to Destiny following the end of the Light and Darkness saga arrived in July's Edge of Fate expansion, in which Bungie laid the groundwork for its next major storyline, titled The Fate Saga. It transported players to a new region of space where they came into conflict with the enigmatic Nine faction. This new campaign introduced new story threads and twists that shook up the lore of the series, and was an intriguing setup for the next phase of Destiny 2. However, the expansion received mixed responses from dedicated players, and struggled to bring in new ones. It's received more than mixed responses. I mean, you go look at the Steam charts here. You can look up Edge of Fate. It's pretty brutal. We were looked at this up yesterday, and we looked up the game of Edging. What the hell? This is a totally different game. All right, we got 10% right now out of the 20 reviews. So yeah, it's been pretty bad. More than mixed. The most controversial change was the refreshed power levels and a steeper grind that made progression more daunting than intended, creating hurdles for reaching higher end activities. And I think their strategy for this was, we're going to make a game that's really grindy, so that way the people that are really hardcore are going to log in and be hardcore. Like, we're going to give you guys a reason to be hardcore. So get ready. You're going to have, it's going to be a lot of time, a lot of dedication. Get back in the mines, and get on Caldera and farm that shit, cracking the whip on us. And people were like, okay, but like for power level? Like, you're telling me you developed Destiny for 10 years and you say you're listening to the players and you're like, we know exactly what we're going to do to launch our entirely new saga, our whole new saga. What we're going to do, oh, get ready for this. We're going to have you guys grind your fucking power level. That's what you love. That's what you want. That's what people have been asking for 10 years, is we just want to grind power level. So that way it could just get reset in 6 months. Like, what a stupid idea. Like, how do you even ship that? It's so dumb. That has to be one of the dumbest ideas they've ever cooked up. Easily. Top 3 dumbest ideas. Green is frank in his assessment of Edge of Fate. He recognizes that the expansion didn't deliver a more satisfying way for players to advance their characters. Thank you. At least there's some honesty. This right here is what I respect the most of this interview. A hard but necessary lesson for the development team to take in. Good. We looked at the problem that we had after the final shape, and we said, we think there's a route here, which is leaning more into systems of pursuit, getting new tiers of gear, armor sets, and power progression, and things like challenge customization, Green said. These things can allow a core audience of players to really say, like, I'm really going to take this game and put it through its paces and get good rewards for it. It sounds great on paper, but it didn't work, he admits. I think we had been taught a bunch of hard lessons about what our players want, and there are really 2 kinds of live games. Those that listen to their players and respond, and those that don't. And we don't want to be a dead live game. We want to keep building Destiny. So we're listening to our players, and what our players are telling us is that they don't want to chase a simple number that goes up. They want real rewards. Very good. That's actually nice to hear. And it's funny, from all of this, we recently got those talks and those rumors of Destiny 3. So I think that they are waking up a little bit to the realization that Destiny 3 is probably no matter what, it's a good idea. Even if it goes in tandem with Destiny 2, that's awesome. I'm a big fan of that. If it, overtakes Destiny 2 and Destiny 2 ceases to end as a live service game, I mean, that's going to be a tough sell, but it's possible. So we'll have to see what they choose to cook with that. Overall, though, what Destiny players want, especially as you have a large audience of veteran players, they want new experiences. I can tell you that right now, is that people, they don't want to log in and do the salt mines again and again and again. They don't want to do even this. You could do the same mission a bunch of different times with a bunch of different modifiers. You could throw in different enemies. That's cool. I actually don't mind that. I don't mind doing the same mission if sometimes the enemies are, taken, and other times the enemies are fallen. I think that's kind of fun. I think it's kind of, adds a little bit of diversity. I don't mind it being some differences in that regard. But you do need to make some new solo ops missions. You do need to make some fire team op missions. You got to make some new strikes, and this just needs to be consistently at the forefront, because these new experiences are what people remember, like people aren't going to, and keep in mind too that people are watching these streams and watching this content. And so when you launch day 1 Edge of Fate, when you're launching day 1 or week 1 Edge of Fate, and people are like, what are you grinding? And they see that you're in a mission that's years old, doing it over and over again, the optics of that are so bad. Do you understand how crazy it is to be a viewer of Destiny 2 content and watch a streamer play and you're like, you're doing what mission? You're doing a mission from like 4 years ago? Uh-huh. Okay. And how long are you going to do this for? All day? Okay. And what are you going to do? You're going to do it all day again tomorrow? And then the day after that, okay. And then, oh, for the next 3 weeks, you're just gonna do the same mission? Okay, yeah, I think I'm gonna watch another stream, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think I wanna buy this game. I don't think I'll purchase this, you know? It's like, the optics are so bad, and the fact that that isn't even the first thing that's said here is a little bit alarming to me personally, because while the power progression was annoying, I actually think, and listen, feel free to, sharpen your pitchforks and light your torches, because I'm about to say the most controversial thing. The power grind would not have been as bad if there was 10 new strikes, if there was 10 new solo ops. I'm just saying, listen, I'm just saying. I would have been like, damn, this power grind's kind of fucking crazy, but like, I mean, at least there's a bunch of new shit to do. As me personally, maybe I'm insane. Maybe everyone's like, fuck that guy. But listen, that's where I stand on it. I probably would have done the power grind if I was like, what are these strikes? What the hell? Like, new strikes? If there was a new strike that came out every week, or 2 every week for the first 4 weeks, 8 strikes, 2 a week for the first 4 weeks, and a solo op every week. That's not even asking that much. All right, we got 550 employees, guys. We got 550 employees working at Bungie. We can pull this off. People will grind the power. Like, you kind of missed the mark with this to some degree, because I think people will grind the power a little bit, because if you get people to just log in and play an activity again and again and again, and their power level goes up naturally, which is what happens with these systems. Every time you complete a strike, you go up in power. Every time you complete a solo op, you go up in power. Even just a little bit, like marginal amount. People will, because of their excitement and their fun, of the fun of playing the new activity, they'll just play it naturally. You know what I'm saying? Get people to power grind naturally. Don't force them to play years old missions. Forcing them to play years old missions was really where they missed the mark. And that's not even being addressed here, which is a bit frustrating, because I just know, as someone that has put in like 20,000 hours in this game, I just know what I want, and I know what my audience wants, and I know what the larger Destiny audience wants, because I spend every day reading these articles and browsing Reddit forums and reading the Twitch chat and the YouTube chat and everything. It's like, I kind of have a good pulse for what people want. And even as I said that in chat, everyone in the chat was like, I'm reading the comments. They're like, no, that's not agree. I agree. That's not controversial at all. Everyone in the chat is agreeing with me, because they're like, yeah, I would grind my power level up if I had some new activities to do. But anyways, following the Final Shapes release, Bungie announced a change to its release plans for major expansions. Instead of a single annual release, the developer would deliver 2 mid-sized expansions per year, each with seasonal events. With the upcoming Renegades expansion, Bungie has an opportunity to showcase its realigned power progression, which has been steadily built over recent updates. They've been butchering this thing left and right, while also delivering a new campaign that celebrates Star Wars and the Destiny universe. Hopefully, the power progression system will be fine-tuned to such a way that when we launch in Renegades, we won't really have to think about it. Power progression should be an afterthought. It should be something that, it might be there. You might have to think about it from time to time, but it shouldn't be at the forefront. You should mostly be, playing really fun experiences. Like, you should be landing in new areas that you've never seen before, maybe engaging new enemies you haven't seen before, new vehicles, new weapons, new armor. Those are the type of things that should be at the forefront of playing a new expansion. And then if there is a power progression system along the way that kind of goes up, it's there and you're not too worried about it. And if you need to focus on grinding your power a couple hours here or there, it's not a big deal for you, because you're okay with launching that new mission that you're having fun playing a few more times. According to Green, the new release model has allowed the team to be more flexible with adapting to feedback, which has aided the development of Renegades. This new expansion not only reevaluates the current game flow and the controversial system changes made earlier in 2025, but also presents a new campaign that hits at the same tone of the 2018 expansion, Forsaken, a darker-edged Star Wars story that's filled with blaster weapons and lightsabers to acquire. Nice. One of the advantages that the new release model gave us, which is 2 expansions a year, means you can experiment more with those individual expansions. You can try different things, Green said. So we saw that we wanted to do a space western revenge story, and we figured, let's do it in that one. Let's aim for this. So we took the idea of Star Wars as total inspiration and built a Destiny expansion around it. That's kind of how we always do it. In this case, I think it comes through much more richly because it's more deliberate with its influences and style, but it's fundamentally a Destiny expansion. And, to be fair, there's going to be a lot of people that feel one way or the other about it. Some people that are big Star Wars fans might be like, oh, this is interesting. I feel like Disney has kind of butchered the Star Wars franchise to some degree. And a lot of people are pretty annoyed by that. I hear that sentiment a lot. I'm not the biggest Star Wars guy. Like, I'm not a big Star Wars aficionado or anything like that, but I have watched, the movies and I have watched The Mandalorian. And I don't know. I think that Star Wars, it's mildly interesting to me. It's not like going to be game changing. Star Wars has already collaborated with like 20 other games prior to this, so I don't know if that we're going to see anything so groundbreaking or revolutionary. I'm not sure if this is going to really move the needle a whole lot. I also don't know that there's like this existing Star Wars fandom and Star Wars base of people that are like, yeah, whatever Star Wars does, we're there, guys. Like, if they go into this video game, we're all gonna download that video game and play it. Like, I don't know that that really exists, you know? Like, I feel like if you're a Star Wars fan, you probably already heard of Destiny. Like, if you're into sci-fi stuff, you probably heard of Destiny. Maybe you tried it, or your friends recommended it to you, or didn't recommend it to you, you know? So because that doesn't really exist, there isn't this like fandom of Star Wars people that are just like a mob of people that like do whatever Star Wars collaborates with. It's perceived more as just like these big companies with this like, copyrighted IP that are like, hey, let's like cross collaborate and see if we can, make some money together. I'll sell my shit in your game and you sell your shit in my stuff. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't know. That's kind of what it comes across as. But because I like Star Wars, I'm gonna give it a pass, and I'm gonna hope that it's delivered and created in a way that's really fun and engaging. And ultimately, it's a video game. You're meant to have fun playing it. I'm gonna probably have fun playing Renegades for at least several weeks when it comes out. I can imagine, based on all the weapons and the exotics I've seen and things like that. I imagine there's gonna be and the approach they're taking with the sandbox is interesting. Bungie's saying something like they're basically just letting the sandbox go buck wild. They're like, fuck it, dude. Everyone's gonna have crazy abilities. So I think this could be a really fun time for builds and it could be a pretty wacky zany time. We'll see. We'll see what happens in terms of retention and stuff like that. But I'm cautiously optimistic is what I'll say. From my hands-on time with Renegades, it's clear that Bungie took away valuable lessons from Edge of Fate's release and post-launch content. I found the new campaign to be more direct in its objectives and offered a fairly generous power grind that focused on more on engaging with new activities than on grinding for rare gear to move power levels up by a tick. It also launches it also touches upon classic Destiny by reintroducing a more developed version of the faction system. Many thoughtful changes really invigorate the Destiny 2 experience, but the question remains whether this will bring back players in droves. That's true. And I always see a lot of people give their thoughts and opinions about expansions before they've come out. And not that they're wrong or anything, but I think it's pretty hard to gauge what a larger audience is going to feel with these expansions and with these releases. And there's a lot of different factors that go into it. I just hope that they're at least spending a decent amount of money marketing and pumping this out so that way more people, at least some eyes, see it and come over to the game because I don't know. We'll have to see how it lands. I feel like I've seen this before where people predict like, "Oh yeah, this is going to be awesome." And then it's not awesome, you know? I feel like a lot of people said nice things about Edge of Fate before it came out, and then it's like you can gauge the start of Edge of Fate like day 1, but when everything's just new, it's so different, right? Like I'll give you a good example. The launch of Edge of Fate, its campaign, the new things that it had, like in terms of just getting a taste of it, it's probably always fun. Like if you only got to play Edge of Fate for one day alone, you probably would have fun that one day. But the problem is that it's meant to last for 6 months. So you pay for an experience that kind of extends across a 6 month period. And that fun you have in that first day doesn't seems to fizzle out or not be as fun day 2 or day 10, day 50, right? And so I find it interesting where we continue to have, content creators, uh, article writers, journalists, play the content and be like, man, this is awesome. You can't wait till you guys see this. And then get kind of the backlash when people aren't as enthusiastic as they are. So I'm at the stage with my opinions on things where I judge it on my opinion, but I also say like, listen, I want you to judge it on your own on what you just watched too, because I don't want to tell people this is so much fun. You guys all need to pre-order Renegades. Because I feel like I can't speak for you if you're actually going to like it. You genuinely might not. I know that a lot of people are like, yeah, I'm not a fan of this. I'm not having it. And I respect it. It's fine if you don't want to play it. It's a type of challenge that has become very common for live service games in 2025. And while the Destiny series has been influential on other games, it's now in a similar position to many of its imitators. Still, Bungie sees this as an opportunity to reassess what Destiny 2 can be. Being like Fortnite? I'm kidding. When reflecting on Destiny 2's current state, core creative director Ben Womack is confident in the current roadmap. The roadmap that we haven't been shared with, and believes that rethinking the rules, it will build a new future for the game going forward. We'll see. I want to see this roadmap, all right, Ben? Look, Ben has access to this roadmap. Where's he at? When you're making something new, you often have a bunch of conventions and boundaries that you have to consider, especially for games that have been around for a long time, like Destiny, he said. It's tempting to stick to those conventions as being the boundaries of the rules, but the truth is that you need to re-examine all of them every single time when trying to really create something special and make a splash. This is especially true when working with Lucasfilm, I guess. We looked at how we made the sandbox stuff we've done. We now have blaster weapons that will stay with us going forward. That's going to be an interesting element, right? You're going to be using Star Wars weapons forever. To be fair, we have been using some Halo weapons with our, swords, and we've got our battlers and stuff like that. Seeing how the lightsaber Praxic blade turned out, and we have the various new syndicates that turned out well. There are things that we definitely wouldn't have done, but we have to accept and push past those usual boundaries to do these things. And as long as it's still fun and people are responding to it and the feel is there, then it's the right decision. Interesting. He said, there are things that we definitely wouldn't have done. That's an interesting line. I wonder what the furthest line is you can take a collaboration like this where it's a bit too much, I feel like Destiny kind of has its own story. It has its own IP. I know that some people are like, they were already annoyed when we had Darth Vader in the game. You know what I'm saying? So I bet there's some Destiny people out there that are like, hell no, I'm not interested in having a lightsaber in the game. Personally, I don't mind it too much, but that makes you feel. Oh, that was the end of that article. Very interesting stuff. Okay, so great to hear from Tyson Green. Tyson Green, a hunter main. He's been invisible since he got the job. And nice to see him, come out of the woodworks here and say something. I feel like a lot of Bungie's upper management, we've seen some changing of the hats, and a lot of them just aren't really saying a whole lot on social media or publicly. And I understand why, because when you say stuff, your words are misconstrued, and then you have to like correct people. And then so you say one thing, and then it's taken like 20 different ways, and then you have to, clarify and then correct people and things like that. But that's kind of a part of the job to some degree. And I really wish that there was more communication in regards to Destiny 2 and how they're going to take the game moving forward. Obviously, them saying they don't want the game to be a dead game is, I mean, I think that's pretty obvious. No one wants to lose their job, of course, but I think that the exact path that you take to grow Destiny is one it's a difficult path right now. And we have a really big uphill battle because we've dug ourselves such a big hole from post the final shape. And like I said before, I think my biggest takeaway from the Edge of Fate and things that we've struggled with is more new experiences. I imagine it's probably the hardest thing to do. It's probably why we don't get enough of them. Like, why did we get no new strikes, right? It's probably really hard to make strikes. I don't know how we fix that. I don't know how we remedy that. I don't know how we get into a pattern of always consistently making strikes for the game so that way people have these new experiences. But whatever it takes, I feel like I can't help but feel like you either give Destiny more new experiences on a more consistent release date, or you just watch the game's population squander into obscurity, and then you end up becoming the dead game, because you just like imagine Renegades launches. Okay, let's imagine a world where Renegades launches and everyone is playing a mission from 5 years ago. You know, nobody's gonna like. You think people are gonna be interested? No, and that's not what's gonna happen with Renegades. Clearly, they've learned that lesson. I hope. And you should be playing a bunch of new things, right? Using a bunch of new weapons, crossbows, Star Wars weapons, blasters, lightsaber, and using new armor and doing a bunch of new interesting things. And I know that a game like Destiny 2 that has a bunch of like it has a big back catalog of content in it, right? You have all these weapons and armor and raids and dungeons and all these activities. And every time something new comes out, something old breaks randomly. Like with Edge of Fate, it launched and suddenly Vault of Glass was broken. If you launched it, it would just crash your game, which was very odd. So I understand that, you know, every time we make more new stuff, we still have to manage the old things, but unfortunately, it's one of those things. It's kind of like power creep, right? It's like power creep where you have to continuously move forward. You have to make the new weapons be more powerful. You have to make new content. And when you hit that threshold of we can't make any more new content because we can't afford to, and we can't not make any more new content because we bleed players, that's that threshold where you're like, holy shit, are we a dead game? You know, like that's kind of that might be where Destiny 2 is at in terms of a predicament. I think the real indicator of if we're actually in that predicament is how successful will Renegades be. I think if Renegades doesn't move the needle as much as at least it has to do as well as Edge of Fate did on day one, I hope, then I think we'll really be at a predicament where Bungie's current maintaining costs, like what it costs for them to keep the studio open and pay all of these devs their salaries, reflective to what they can produce in terms of new content, is just it's hit that equilibrium. But now it's the scales are weighted the other way. They can't make enough new content potentially to satiate the player base they have, so they just bleed players and lose money at a rate that's faster than what they're gaining, and then the game dies. You know, it's a slow bleeding death, but that's how it dies. You know, and so it's a weird predicament. You would think it would take us longer to get there, considering there's games like WoW that have been out for like 20 years. You would think that Destiny 2 could survive. We came out in 2017? We didn't even make it 10 years yet. You know, you like in terms of just Destiny 2, right? Like we even got to take a bunch of content from Destiny 1 to alleviate some of the issues. We've been reprising content for so many years now. Legendary weapons, armor, ornaments, cosmetics, exotics. You know, we've been reprising D1 stuff, you know, for countless years now. And, you know, you'd think that we'd be able to continuously make content at a much faster pace where at least we would hit a roadblock at year, I don't know, 10, 15, 20, right? Like WoW is like 20 years old and they seem to be doing okay. Are they making D3? They are currently discussing D3 right now, which is an interesting conversation. We'll have to see what we come to with that. I'll be reading your comments about this one. Let me know what you think, and that's a wrap on it.